So before we touch any code, we need to talk about something critical. What happens when the code breaks? Now, up until now, most of our programs have only worked when everything goes right, but that's not real life. Files go missing, users type the wrong thing, programs crash, and that's where error handling comes in. It's what allows your code to say, okay, hey, that didn't work, but I'm not going to fall apart. I've got this. So in Python, the main tool that we're going to be using to handle these errors is the try and except block. Let me show you what happens when something breaks in Python. Okay, so I'm going to paste some code, and this is a very small, simple problem that's going to crash our program. And what we have here is a print statement. Okay, we're going to start the program. And then we have this 10 divided by 0, which is not allowed in math. So this right here is going to throw an error. So let me go ahead and run this. And as you can see, here's our error, 0 division error, division by 0. And so the important thing to understand right here, we don't see this last print statement in here. And the reason why is that Python sees that error in the program and then it just stops completely. And so the last print statement never runs. So nothing else in your program happens. And so that's what I mean when I say, hey, the program crashes. And one mistake, everything stops. So now let's look at how we can protect against these kind of crashes. And what we want to do is we want to say, hey, Python, try this. But listen, if something goes wrong, go ahead and handle it gracefully. Don't just like stop the program. And so let me show you how to write that code. Okay, so I'm going to paste some code in. And so in this code, we are going to handle our error. So let's go by this line by line and see what's happening. Go ahead and pause the program to copy this down. But here we go. We have our print statement starting program. And then we have this new keyword try. And as you can see, this is going to tell Python, hey, try running this next block of code. Okay, just try it. And so inside of this block of code, inside of our try block, we have this 10 divided by 0. This is that risky code that's going to cause an error assigned to result. And then we also have a print statement. Now, we already know that when there's this error, this print statement is not going to run. So what ends up happening is we have this except blocked, okay? This except keyword, when this error happens, Python is going to jump here, and it's going to go inside of this except blocks code and run the code here. As you can see, inside of this except, our IDE is giving us a little bit of a warning that we're making a mistake. As we can see, that squiggly line. And what it says is too broad of an exception clause. So right now, we're just starting with the except for now, just to learn the shape of error handling. But as you grow, you're going to be using specific errors like file not found error or value error, or in this case, 0 division error. And you would put it right next to this. And you see that goes away, okay? So I'll include a short list in the course hub, and you can check that out as you build. So just know that normally you want to catch these exceptions, all right? That's what we call them. We call them exceptions. You want to catch them, and you want to be specific with what kind of error that potentially could be here. This risky behavior could potentially create this 0 division error. And so you note that inside of your except, like, hey, catch this exception, and it's going to be a 0 division error type exception. All right, moving on. Okay, so inside of our except block, this is the print statement, and so this is going to run instead of crashing the program. And then as we move along, this shows the rest of the program. The program kept going. So let me go ahead and run this code. And so we could see starting program, and we can also see inside of this try block, this essentially got skipped. This print did not run because there was an error right here. However, rather than crashing the program as it did earlier, it jumped immediately into this except block, all right? And then it prints something went wrong, but the program didn't crash. And now we're out of that, and we're allowed to continue to move along with our program, and we have the program kept going. So to summarize quickly, this try block, this is where something potentially risky could be happening. Some type of error that could make your program stop and crash. Inside of your accept block, this is where you say, hey, this is what I want to do if it breaks. This is where you are able to handle that error gracefully. And that's how we keep control, and that's how we can prevent crashes and our programs can keep going. All right, let's do a real world example. I'm going to comment this all out. Okay, so now that we've seen the problem and we've seen the fix, let's build something real, okay? What we're going to do is we are going to create our own version of SurveyMonkey. Have you guys used that before? SurveyMonkey, I think Google Forms has it. Anyways, we're going to have like this SurveyMonkey Lite version. But what you're going to do is we're going to write a survey question. We're going to offer multiple choice answers, then save them to a file, and let someone respond and record their answers. But most importantly, we're going to protect every step of this program from crashing. So let's build part one, creating the survey. All right, so this first part of the tool is going to be about creating the survey. And so this part is going to ask the user to enter a question and then add 4 multiple choice options and then save everything to a file. And we'll be wrapping this with a try and accept block. So if anything goes wrong, the program doesn't crash. So let me go ahead and paste this code. All right. So let's go through this line by line. So right here in question, this is going to ask the user to type in the main question for their survey, and it's going to store it in a variable question. Then we're going to have this input option A, and this is going to get the first possible answer, and it stores it in option 1. And then the next 3 lines, they gather the remaining answer options, so B, C, and D, using an input to store them in separate variables. And then now we jump to try, and this starts our try block. So let's go inside of the try blocks code. Here we have this with, which is a new keyword, open survey.text W as F. We didn't learn about that last class when we talked about opening files. It's a simple concept and you'll completely understand it. And in the course hub, I'll give some more information about it. But essentially what this is doing is this is trying to open or create a file called survey.txt, and it's doing it in write mode. And then what it's going to do is the result of that file handle is going to be stored as F, okay? So this is essentially like a little variable right here. We're storing this as F. Now, if this is successful, we're going to go inside of this code block and we are going to write the survey question to the file, followed by a new line. Let me get rid of this. Okay. Now, the next 4 lines each are going to write one option, labeling it A, B, C, or D. And then when we're done with that, we're going to print survey created successfully. If nothing went wrong inside of this block while creating this file, print is going to print this statement, survey created successfully. Now we have our accept block, okay? And if any part of this try block fails, so anything inside of here, if any of it fails, like a problem with file permissions or some type of disk space error, any type of problem, we're going to jump into this accept block and we're going to say, hey, something went wrong while trying to save your survey. And as you can see, we have that little too broad of a exception here. So we would want to make sure in a real program that we were writing the correct type of error that could occur in this block of code. Okay, so now we have the first piece of our tool. It's going to ask for a question, it takes options, and it saves everything to a file safely. So next we're going to build the second part, which is taking a survey. And so that means reading the question and letting someone vote. Before we go into the next section, I want to call this out. When we are using these try and accept blocks, this really is defensive programming. And when you're coding, you always want to be writing your code in a defensive way because it's not just about these file errors that potentially can happen, but code can fail in a lot of ways. Users can enter the wrong thing, a file can get deleted, a system can freeze. And so what you want to just ultimately be thinking about when you're programming is you think ahead, what could go wrong? And how do I keep the program running if it does go wrong? Or should the program continue to run? Is this kind of like an error that is not recoverable? So these are just things that you want to be thinking about as you grow as a programmer, okay? It's about not just writing code for the happy path where everything is working correctly, but you also want to be writing code that survives, and it's just very important to think about how code fails. All right, so let's move on to the next part. All right, so now we're going to write the part of our tool that lets someone take the survey. So this is going to include reading the question and options from the file, then showing it clearly, and then asking the user to choose one option. Alrighty, and then we're also going to do something new, which is validate their input, and we're going to save their response, all while handling all the errors at each step. So we're going to start by trying to open and read the file that contains a survey. If the file doesn't exist, then that means that there's a problem reading it. So we'll catch that with a try and accept. Okay, let's talk about what we just pasted in here. This is going to begin a block where Python will attempt to run the next few lines, and if any part fails, it's going to go to the except block. So let's go inside this try block and look at the code. Here we are. So this is going to try to open this survey.txt. We're using that with keyword again, and we're just going to open up this file handler and store it in F. And inside of this, if everything goes okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to read all the lines off of F, stored in lines, and this is going to be a list, and each item in the list is one line from the file. And then next, we're going to extract the first line. All right, we're going to extract the first line from this list. And then next, we have this question variable, and what we're going to do is we're going to extract the first line from this list of lines, and then we're going to remove any extra white space or new line characters, all right, and store that in question. And then next, we have options, and what we're going to do right here is we're going to get the rest of the lines from this list lines, all right? We're going to be starting from index 1, and we're going to store them all in a list called options. All right, and now we're done with here, and then let's go inside of our accept, okay? So if opening or reading the file fails for any reason, then this block of code runs instead. And we're going to print survey not found. All right, so now that we have the questions and options loaded from the file, let's display them in a clean and readable way. So I'm going to paste some code. Let me just quickly show you what's happening right here in this displaying the survey. All right, this line, of course, print statement with survey. Okay, and then we're going to add some spacing before and after as a header just to visually separate the server from the other output. And then we're going to be printing the question. And so this is going to label the question section. All right, and so then we actually print the question, which is going to print the actual question from the file. And then we're just going to have some more formatting where we're going to have options, which adds spacing before listing the answer options. And then right here, we are going to be looping inside of these options, okay? And so this is going to loop through each options in the options list. It's going to print by stripping each option of any extra white space, and it's going to print it with a dash for formatting. So now we ask the user to choose one of those options, and we're going to clean up their input, and then we'll check whether it's valid before saving it. Okay, so what's going on here? First thing that we're going to do is we have this answer variable, and our input is going to display a prompt asking the user to choose an option. And whatever option they choose, we're then going to strip it from any extra spaces from the input. And then we are going to convert it to uppercase. All right, so before we move on to saving the answer, we need to talk about this new idea, okay? And it's called input validation. Now, you've already learned how to use try and accept to catch actual Python errors, like when a file doesn't exist or a division by 0 happens. But now we're dealing with a different kind of problem. Let's say that the user types something unexpected, like the letter Z, okay? And now, or just nothing at all. So Python's not going to throw an error for that because it still sees it as a valid string, so your code is going to keep running. However, it's going to be bad data. And if you don't check that data, your program might save something useless and display the wrong thing later, or even worse, break logic that you've written. So that's where input validation comes in. And so input validation checking is, hey, is this input meaningful and acceptable for this program? It's your job as a developer to say, here are the only answers that make sense here. So if what the user typed isn't in that set, you don't move forward. You stop and explain. And so I just want to give you a quick conceptual difference between error handling, which was using the try and except, and that's actually for catching Python errors. So things that would crash the program if not caught. Now, input validation, it's for checking the meaning and structure of user input. So even if Python thinks it's valid, it automatically could mess up the program further down the road because it's bad data for the program. So when do you use input validation? Well, anytime your code relies on a specific kind of answer from the user, or anytime you're making decisions based on what they typed, especially when you're collecting data, making choices, or saving responses. Now let's go ahead and write our validation logic. Okay, so this is going to check, hey, is this input, is this answer not in A, B, C, or D? Because this is the complete list of acceptable answers in our survey. Remember up here, option A, B, C, or D, which will be written here. And so if it's not in there, if they wrote Z or didn't type anything at all, then we're going to print invalid user. Please choose A, B, C, or D only. So now you're using both try and except to catch program errors or system level errors, and you're using if statements to validate data coming from the user. These two things, they work together to keep your code stable and usable. Okay, so now that we've made sure the input is valid, we need to safely save to the file. And so we're once again going to be protecting the file with the try and except block, just in case something goes wrong. All right, so let's write this. Okay, I pasted that code in. Okay, so we have this else, all right? So this block of code is only going to run if the answer passed the validation logic here. And so inside of else, we have this try, and this is going to begin the error handling block for writing the response to the file. And we have this with open, where we are going to either open responses.txt or we're going to create it. And we're using the append mode because we don't want to erase any previous answers. We're storing that to F. All right. And then we're going to write that selected answer to the file. It's going to be 1 per line. Okay. And then we're going to print your response has been recorded. Thank you. So if anything goes wrong, we have this except. And so we will handle it by saying something went wrong while trying to save your response. This will inform the user that saving the file failed, but the program just keeps running. So now we have a working system that reads a survey, it displays it cleanly, it accepts a response, validates the input, saves the answer, and never crashes, even if something goes wrong. All right, so let's move on with our program. The last thing, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be viewing the survey results with error handling and just some simple tallying up. So all right, and so let's move on. We are going to go to our last section, which is going to be viewing the survey results. So now that people can take the survey and their responses are being saved, we need to build one last feature. We want to view the results. So in this part, what we're going to do is we're going to open the file where responses are stored, and then we're going to count how many times each option was chosen and show the totals. So just like before, we're going to protect this with try and except in case the file is missing or unreadable. So we're going to try by reading the responses from the file, and if the file doesn't exist, maybe no one has taken the survey yet, so we'll catch that and show a friendly message. All right, so we have this try, which starts our error handling block. And then we have with open, which is going to attempt to open the responses.txt in read mode. And we're going to read all the responses from that file into a list, and each line in the list is one vote. Okay, then we have our accept, And this is going to run if the file doesn't exist or something goes wrong while opening it. So no response is found. Has anyone taken the survey yet? Now that we're able to read the responses, we'll now count how many times each option was chosen. And so we're going to use a dictionary to track how many A's, B's, C's, or D's that we've seen. So let me go ahead and write the code. We've created this dictionary, and this dictionary is going to count how many times each option was selected. And then we have this loop that's going to loop through every recorded response, and it's going to store the response, removing the extra white space or new line characters in an answer variable. And then we're going to do a little check. If there's an answer in tally, so we're going to be looking for if that answer is in one of the valid options, we're going to do tallies answers plus equals 1. So we're going to add that 1 to the count for that specific answer. And then last but not least, we are going to print the survey results. And so we're going to add a heading to make sure the results section is clear. And then we are going to grab the items from this dictionary inside of tallies. So we're going to loop through each key value pair in the dictionary. And choice is going to be something like A, and count is going to be how many times it was chosen. And so we will print the number of votes for each option using an F string. So there's a lot of code right here. We did it in a lot of different sections. Let's run this through. Okay, I'm going to run the program. Enter your survey question. Do you like Python? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Option C, kinda. Option C, not sure. All right, so this has created our survey. Let's look at that code. Make it a little bit bigger so we can see that section. Okay, so it says, all right, so it says survey created successfully. And let's look at the code. This program is still running. As you can see, we have this red here. So we can't see that the actual file was created at this point yet, but let's just look at the code to see what we did here for a little reminder. Okay, so enter your survey question, and then here are our different options that are stored in this option 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we go inside of this try block, and this is where we attempt to create this new survey.txt in write mode, which it appears that we did because we do see this message, survey created successfully. Okay, and then we continue to go down the code, and we can see. Okay, so now we're reading the file, that survey that we just created. Alrighty, and so it appears that everything is okay because we can see that our code continued to move on. Clean that up. Oops. Our code continued to move on, and we have this survey right here for formatting. Survey, okay, and then print question, and then the actual question. So this was the question that we asked right here. Enter your survey question. This is the question that we asked. And so it's going to ask us, hey, let's print the options out. All right. So here we go. Option A. Oh, what's going on? Okay. And why is this incorrect? Well, the reason why this is incorrect is because I have this answer inside of this loop. And so the code is going to run every single time, as we could see, choose an option A, B, C, or D for each option. And that's not actually what we want. And the reason why is because all of this code right here, these input is going to run for each option. And that's not what we want. We only want this to run once because we're asking only one question here. So we need to move this logic outside of our for loop. Okay. Alrighty. So now let's just start on over again because this code is blocked. So I'm going to hit stop main. All right, I'm going to clear this up. Let's try this again. Let me go ahead and run the program. Okay, do you like Python? Yes, no, kinda, not sure. All right. Okay, so we can see that everything is printing correctly. Print survey created successfully. We can actually see that it is created here. Let me get rid of this from before. Okay, let's run the program. Enter your survey question. Let's see. Do you like Python? Okay, option A, I'm going to say yes. Option B, I'm going to say no. Option C, I'm going to say kinda. Option C, I'm going to say not sure. Okay, and so let's see how that relates to our code. Okay, so we can see that enter your survey question, I entered it. All of these are being stored correctly in these variables. And then we go inside of here and it says that the survey was created successfully. Now we don't see the survey.txt, but that's because we are still inside of a running program right now. This program is alive right now. It's not done yet. So it hasn't been created yet. Okay. So let's move along. We're not going inside of the except block because this survey was created successfully. So then next we're going to go here. We're opening up this survey.txt file and we are reading it. Okay. And you could see that there was no type of error here. So the program is going to keep going along and we're printing this survey header and we have question and then we print the actual question that we asked in the survey. And then inside of here, this is what we fixed that was broken from before. We're printing the options, okay? And so we're printing each option that we chose from up here and that we stored when we read the file, because these options are being read from the file that is created that you can't see, but it is there. And it is assigning it to options and we are iterating. We're using a for loop through those options. And so you can see that it's printed here. Okay, and then now we're getting to this next set of input. Choose an option A, B, C, or D, strip or upper. So let's check out two scenarios here. I'm going to do the happy case. I'm going to put A first. All right, so we can see that we have some new results here. Okay, so let's see what happens. We see that our answer, because we did choose A here, it was not in here, so it passed the validation for us. Alrighty, and then we went into this else statement and we created this responses.txt, or we read the one that was in there and we appended our answer to it. Okay, and so it says your response has been recorded. Thank you. We can actually look inside of here and see that A was recorded, and there's our responses.txt. Okay, and then we keep moving along, and what we do is we actually grab that responses, we read that file again and store it to responses. Okay, and then we have this tallies dictionary, and you could see that we printed survey results. Okay, and so inside of this tallies dictionary, we checked the response in responses. Alrighty, and we added that to our tally. We created a dictionary that is going to take that answer, look it up if that key is inside of tallies, as it is, and then it's going to add the value +1 to that key. And so that's why we could see survey results when we print right here. We are iterating through these items and we're grabbing the key and value pair and we're printing the choice A has 1 votes. And we only asked one question, so that's the reason why everything else has 0 votes. And so this is the whole program right here. This was a mouthful. Now, this was the happy path. Let's go through where the validation is not set correctly, okay? And let's see what happens when the validation is not set correctly. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete. Yep. You know what? I'm going to delete it anyways. It's just giving a nice warning. This is not safe to delete because it's used. I'm going to do it again for the survey.text. Delete anyways. All right. So let's try running this program again. And we're going to not do the input validation correctly. Okay, so I'm running it. Enter your survey question. Do you like Python? Go yes, option A. Option B, no. Kinda. Not sure. Alrighty, I'm gonna choose an option. So we are down at this part inside of the code. Okay, we're at this input right here. And so I want to show what our program does when we choose an invalid answer. So I'm going to choose Z. Okay, and so we see, okay, guys, I made a bug in the code. All right, so here's these fun little bugs. Here's a problem. Let's talk about what happened right here, okay? A few things that this is an error and I have a bug in the code. So this is a good time for us to learn how to handle this. So what happened right here? Well, we can see invalid answer. Please choose A, B, C, or D only. All right. So inside of our code block, we put invalid answer. Please choose A, B, C, or D only. And so it printed. It's doing what it's supposed to do. That we're trying to open this responses.text, but guess what? It doesn't exist. So it's going to this except block and it's printing no response found. Has anyone taken the survey yet? And so we see that no response is found. Has anyone taken the survey yet? However, as we move down the line of code, we can see that we're trying to use responses. And that's the reason why we get this name error. Name responses is not defined. This is where this error is coming from. This is not defined. Okay, so what do we need to do to fix this? We can add this response recorded variable. Okay, so right now response recorded equals false because there's no response recorded right here. And then we're going to go inside of here and we're going to say, okay, cool. If this individual answers this question, all right, and it's a valid answer, it passes here, we're going to go inside of this else statement, okay, and then we're going to update response recorded equals true. Okay, so here's what we can do is, before we go and look to see if we have some responses, we'll do a check, all right, we'll check if response is recorded, which is going to evaluate to either true or false. If it's true, then we run all this code, okay, where we display the results. So let me go ahead and indent this. So what happens if the response is not recorded? All right, we could just end this by saying else print no response recorded. So we have it in two places. What's a better? If the response is recorded, here we go. Right here we can say, all right, let's change this message. Let's say there was a problem reading the file. This would be really good time. File not found error or file not found error, something like that, because that's most likely would be the problem right here. But there was a problem reading the file. However, we're going to, if it's okay, cool. So we have the read lines. Then we're going to go through this tallies and we are going to iterate through the responses. And we are going to grab the answer, and then we're going to tally up the results, alrighty? And then from there, we're going to print the survey results. Now, if none of that works, so if response recorded is false, then we're just going to go to this else. No response was recorded. Did you take the survey? Alrighty, this was a lot. Let's run the code again and see what happens. Alrighty, so we're going to enter our survey question. Do you like Python? Okay, we're going to say yes. We're going to say no, say kinda, not sure. All right, now in this instance, what we're doing is we are going to verify, we're going to add some wrong data. We're going to go to this part of the code where we are not going to pass this validation. All righty, so here we are right here. If we're right here, we're waiting for this. Okay, and so I'm going to put Z. And so now we're checking this failure part. We're making sure that our program works correctly even when it fails. Okay, so let's see what happened. We put Z, right? Invalid answer. Please choose A, B, C, or D only. Alrighty, so it skipped all this code right here. Let's clean that up. It skipped all this. It skipped all this code right here, and if the response is recorded, which it wasn't because we added this here, this falsy right here, never got updated. If it wasn't recorded, then we're just going to go to this else statement. Print no response recorded. Did you take the survey? And then there we have it. Did you take the survey? All right. So let's try it one more time, and let's just make sure it works correctly when it's going down the happy path. Okay, and so what we're doing right here, this is how it goes. This is how it works when you are building programs. So I'm going to run the program again. Now this should work correctly. Do you like Python? Okay, yes, no, kinda, not sure. All right, so here we are. Okay, so we are at the choose an option, and so we're at this input, and so I'm going to put B. No, of course I'm not going to put B. Of course I'm going to put A. Come on, I love it. All right, and so we can see that everything, your response has been recorded. Thank you. Survey results. We have our little tally of results. A1 is here we go. Boom, 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 boom. Same that we saw. Whew, that was a lot. Let's have some final thoughts here, okay? You just built something so solid, and it was a simple functional survey tool. And now, more importantly, you learned how to protect your code from crashing and how to validate the user's type and how to make sure your program can keep running even when things go wrong. You also just went through some debugging. I made some problems with the code, and we fixed it and just made our program a lot more resilient. These are foundational skills, and they're going to show up everywhere. Always when you're coding, if anything you get out of this lesson is while you're coding and you're building something, you think, how can this fail? What could go wrong? And then you handle it by using errors, try catch blocks, errors, and input validation or validation in general. All right, so the next steps, go ahead and make sure to check the Course Hub for resources tied to this lesson. Drop a comment if you enjoyed this, and subscribe, like, and I will see you at the next